The sun was setting over the bustling streets of Ibadan, casting a warm glow on the market. Kunle, a young man in his late 20s, stood at a corner stall watching as vendors packed away their goods. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the conversation he had with his brother-in-law Tunde just a week ago. "Are you sure about Sandra?" Tunde had asked, his voice low, but firm. "There's something about her. Things you don't know." Kunle had laughed it off back then, dismissing Tunde's concerns as unnecessary jealousy or maybe a misunderstanding. But now, standing alone with the weight of Tunde's warning on his shoulders, Kunle felt a slight unease creep in. Later that evening, when Kunle got home, he found Sandra in the kitchen, the aroma of jollof rice filling the air. She was humming softly, her back turned to him. "You're home early today," she said, glancing over her shoulder with a smile. "Yeah," Kunle replied, trying to shake off the nagging feeling. "Sandra, can we talk?" She turned, her expression curious but calm. "About what?" "Just been thinking. About us. How well do you know Tunde?" Her smile faded slightly. "Tunde? I don't really know him. Just your sister's husband. Why?" "Nothing," Kunle said, forcing a smile. "Just wondering." But Sandra's eyes were unreadable, and for a moment, a shadow of suspicion clouded his mind. The next day, Kunle stopped by his sister's home. Tunde was in the compound fixing an old bicycle for their son. "Ah, Kunle, welcome," Tunde greeted warmly. "Come join me, please." Kunle sat on a stool nearby, watching Tunde's steady hands at work. He wanted to ask again, but hesitated, thinking of Sandra's calm demeanor. "About last week," Kunle started, his voice trailing off. Tunde stopped, wiping his hands with a rag. "Oh, Sandra, listen, I didn't mean to worry you, but you should be careful. Have you talked to her about it?" Kunle nodded slowly. She seemed okay. "Maybe it was just me overthinking," he said, though his heart wasn't convinced. It was raining heavily by the time Kunle left Tunde's house. As he drove back, Tunde's words kept echoing in his mind. Could there be a truth that he was blind to? That night, as Sandra lay asleep beside him, Kunle stared at the ceiling, unease gnawing at his insides. He shifted quietly, reaching for his phone on the bedside table. A quick scroll through Sandra's social media brought nothing unusual. Still, a conversation with Tunde lingered at the back of his mind, more pressing with every tick of the clock. 2 days later, Kunle received an unexpected email. It was from Tunde. The subject line simply read, "For your eyes only." His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, the contents sending a chill down his spine. A screenshot. Sandra, in what looked like a restaurant with another man. The caption read, "Can't wait to be with you again." Kunle stared at the screen, disbelief and anger warring inside him. Trust shattered in an instant, like a glass dropped on concrete. Kunle confronted Sandra that evening as she set the table for dinner. His voice was tight with restrained emotion. "Who is he, Sandra?" She looked up, her eyes wide and innocent. "Who is who?" "The man," Kunle spat, pulling his phone from his pocket and shoving the screen under her nose. Sandra's face fell, shock giving way to anger. "You're spying on me now?" she retorted. "Who is he?" Kunle demanded again, the anger rising. Sandra's silence was louder than any confession, and in that silence, Kunle's world cracked and began to crumble. The aftermath of their confrontation was raw and bitter. Kunle stormed out of the house, leaving Sandra pleading for him to come back inside. By the time he stopped walking, he found himself at Tunde's door, drenched from the rain. Tunde opened the door, surprise etched on his face. "Kunle?" Kunle stepped in silently, collapsing into a chair, his face buried in his hands. "I don't know what to do. I thought I knew her. I thought—" Tunde placed a comforting hand on Kunle's shoulder. "Sometimes, the truth is hidden in plain sight." Kunle began avoiding home, spending his evenings at a local bar instead. The pain and betrayal felt like a heavy stone in his chest that wouldn't move. His friends tried to distract him with jokes and stories, but the laughter sounded hollow to Kunle's ears. One evening, as the bar began to wind down, Kunle received a call from his sister, Funmi. "You need to come over," she said urgently. Kunle's heart skipped. Had something else happened? Kunle arrived at his sister's home and Funmi met him at the door, her face strained with worry. Tunde was right, she said without preamble. Sandra. She's been seeing him for months. Kunle felt the floor drop out from under him. How do you know? Funmi hesitated, casting a glance towards the children playing on the floor. The man. He's someone we know. Someone from the neighborhood. The revelation felt like a slap. Someone they knew. Someone who had betrayed both Kunle and his sister. Kunle felt the fury rise again, his hands clenching into fists. What kind of person? Funmi placed a gentle hand on his arm, trying to calm him. Kunle, please, don't do anything rash. Think about this. But her words fell on deaf ears. Kunle's mind was already racing, planning, though what he planned, he wasn't yet sure. As the days passed, Kunle's focus turned from pain to vengeance. He started piecing together clues bit by bit. Everyone knew someone who knew someone. Kunle was determined to find out every detail of this betrayal. He spoke to his neighbors, old friends, anyone who might know who the man was. Each piece of information fueled his resolve, each hint pulling him deeper into the web of deception Sandra had spun. One afternoon, while Kunle was at a cafe, a familiar face approached. It was Shola, an old schoolmate. Kunle, Shola greeted, hesitating slightly. I heard about the trouble at home. Kunle met Shola's eyes, the unspoken understanding between them, louder than words. Tell me what you know. Shola sat down, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's all over town. The guy. He's known for this. You aren't the first. Kunle's stomach turned. So Sandra was not the woman he thought, but he needed proof. He needed to see for himself. Kunle returned home that evening, his mind settled on what he had to do. Sandra was surprised to see him. You came back, she said, her voice hopeful. We need to talk, Kunle replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. They sat in the living room, the air thick with tension and unshed tears. Kunle felt the weight of his decision like never before. We can't continue like this, Kunle started, voice steady. Things need to change. Sandra looked at him, guilt and regret clear in her eyes. Kunle, I'm sorry. I just got lost. Kunle stood, pacing the room. Lost? You think that makes it better? You've torn our lives apart. His voice cracked with the weight of his emotions. Sandra was silent, her head bowed. I have to do something, Kunle continued, more to himself than to her. I have to make this right. For me. For Kunle, the path was clear now, though it was covered in thorns that would cut and bruise. But what was pain next to betrayal? Kunle waited until Sandra was asleep. Then he took his phone and sent a message to Tunde. Tomorrow, he would end it. Tomorrow, he would confront the man face to face. He had gotten the man's address. He knew where the man would be. As Kunle lay in bed, sleep eluded him, his mind buzzing with plans and what-ifs. But mostly with the anger that was no longer a flame, but a steady, burning fire. By morning, Kunle had made up his mind. He would no longer be a victim in his own story. Yet even as he prepared for the confrontation, part of him feared what he might become in the process. Tomorrow held promises of resolution or destruction, and either way, Kunle would face it head-on. The morning sun crept into Kunle's room, casting a dull light on the walls as he prepared for the confrontation ahead. He couldn't shake the vivid images of Sandra laughing with another man, which clawed at his heart. The weight of betrayal kept his anger stoked, fueling every step he took. Mayowa, Kunle said to the mirror, practicing his confrontation with the man who dared encroach on his marriage. The name was now etched in his mind, a bitter taunt he had to confront. You will pay for every tear you've caused. His phone buzzed. Tunde's message on the screen was brief. Be careful, Kunle. Anger can destroy. Kunle stifled a growl, pocketing his phone. No one understood the depth of this pain, or why he had to do this. Kunle parked outside the small eatery where he had learned Mayowa often spent his afternoons. His heartbeat was loud in his ears, drowning out the market's lively cacophony. Inside, the man sat alone at a table, face partially hidden by a newspaper. Kunle approached, his steps heavy with purpose. "Mayowa," he said, his voice low but commanding. Mayowa looked up, surprise flitting across his features. He recovered quickly, setting the newspaper aside casually. "Kunle, right? I was expecting you." The nonchalance in Mayowa's tone snapped something in Kunle. He leaned over the table, fists trembling. "How dare you? You come into my home, my life." The conversation grew heated with each exchange, words cutting deeper than Kunle anticipated. Mayowa, unfazed, seemed almost entertained by Kunle's fury. "You think you own her, do you?" Mayowa taunted, one brow raised. Kunle was at his breaking point. His fingers itched to throw a punch, but the bustling eatery served as a public restraint. "This isn't over, Mayowa," he warned, voice wavering with rage. As Kunle left, the sting of impotence clouded his vision. He had wanted satisfaction, a sense of justice, but had been given only more bitterness. Kunle found himself wandering aimlessly, the encounter with Mayowa replaying endlessly in his mind. Revenge was supposed to fill the chasm Sandra left, not widen it further. He walked into the small church on the corner, seeking solitude, not solace. The quiet was calming, the scent of old hymns wrapped around him like an embrace. Not many people were there, just a few scattered souls seeking refuge. At the altar, an elder, Pastor Bamidele, was arranging hymnals. His gentle voice floated over. "Ah, Kunle, I haven't seen you here in ages." "I wasn't looking for company," Kunle replied, gaze fixed on the floor. Silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the pastor's calm breathing. Kunle's anger flared again, but this time it was mixed with despair. "I wanted everything to be different," Kunle admitted, his voice cracking. "Revenge doesn't fill the emptiness." Pastor Bamidele nodded knowingly. "Revenge leaves a trail of destruction, my son. But forgiveness, it's not weakness. It's a struggle, a warfare of its own." Kunle shook his head, unable to fathom forgiving the man who had shattered his life. "Why should I let go? They should suffer like I am." The pastor chose his next words carefully, his tone rhythmic and soothing. "Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. You seek justice, but true justice restores. It doesn't destroy. Remember who you are, Kunle." The words hit Kunle like a torrent, challenging the rage he had nurtured. He hadn't thought of God's place in all this. Could there really be restoration beyond the pain? Kunle turned to the pastor, his eyes reflecting inner turmoil. "How do I start? How do I forgive them?" Pastor Bamidele moved closer, placing a comforting hand on Kunle's shoulder. "You start by releasing it. Take the pain to God. You cannot carry it alone. Ask for His strength to forgive. Beg for understanding, even for those who hurt you." Kunle closed his eyes. The battle within won over with each gentle word the elder spoke. He bowed his head, whispering a prayer through choked sobs, his defenses crumbling. "God, take this from me. I can't bear it anymore." He prayed for strength, for clarity, for the ability to let go. As Kunle left the church, something had shifted, as though the storm clouds in his heart had begun to part. The past would not fade immediately, but he felt the first rays of light break through the dusk. He found himself outside Tunde's doorstep once more. His brother-in-law greeted him with a tentative smile. "Kunle, you look different." Kunle hesitated before nodding. "I went to see Mayowa. It didn't go as I planned, but I think talking to the pastor helped." Tunde gestured for him to sit. "Forgiveness is a journey. I'm glad you're choosing a different path." Sitting together, the brothers-in-law shared stories and laughter, the tension of the past week slowly melting away. It was a small taste of what life used to feel like, a quiet hope that it could be again. But there was still Sandra and the bitter taste of betrayal to address. His heart clenched at the thought, but Kunle knew now that vengeance wasn't the route to healing. "I want to confront her," Kunle said, "but with God's grace this time." Returning home, Kunle found Sandra waiting nervously by the door. Her eyes, red-rimmed with unshed tears, met his, holding a mix of regret and fear. "I'm sorry, Kunle," she began before he could speak. "I don't know how to—" Kunle interrupted, raising a hand gently. "We both need to talk, and we need to forgive. Somehow. Not just for us, but for God, for the peace we're both missing. Sandra looked at him with surprise, her defenses crumbling. You're willing to try? Kunle breathed deeply, nodding. I'll admit, I can't do this alone. Seeking revenge nearly consumed me, but Pastor Bamadele, he reminded me of where real strength comes from. A long silence stretched between them, hanging heavy with memories, regrets, and those unsaid things that could build their bridge to reconciliation. I'm willing to try if you truly are, Sandra, but it will take time and faith. Sandra nodded vigorously, fresh tears falling. For the first time in weeks, Kunle saw a glimpse of hope in their future. Though shadows still lingered, they no longer felt so threatening. Sandra whispered, I want to confess, to seek help too. God, I've strayed so far. Kunle reached for her hand, the bond feeling fragile but resolute in faith. We'll do this together, one step at a time, but know this, with Christ anything can be forgiven. In the days following, Kunle and Sandra began the difficult journey of rebuilding trust and rediscovery. It wasn't easy, but there was humility and openness that hadn't been there before. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, sharing stories and laughter once again, Kunle offered a quiet prayer under his breath. He had learned the precious truth, that peace from God is deeper than revenge, and his love more enduring than pain. The road would be long, but Kunle was no longer alone in it. Together, they sought healing, through conversations, community support, and a newfound reliance on God. When doubts whispered at Kunle's heart, the elder's words would echo, True justice restores. That restoration had begun within him, a constant reminder that revenge breaks, but faith rebuilds stronger. As Kunle looked at the Bible resting on the coffee table, its lessons finally clear, he knew that Sandra and he might still carry scars. But these would remind them of battles faced and overcome rather than lost fights. In this new chapter, forgiveness became their choice every day. And not just for others, but for themselves as well. Kunle closed his eyes, allowing a peace to settle that only Christ could offer. Perhaps not a perfect ending, but one that promises a new beginning.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.